There was a time in the deep frozen tundra of the far north when the monsters of that accursed land were content with their daily struggle for survival. The smell of prey, the rush of the kill, and the savor of the feast. A purely instinctual existence, without meaning, without design, without thought. And then came Throgg, the king of trolls, a force of nature who imposed his indomitable will on the beasts of Wintertooth and gave them a sense of purpose, a sense of identity, and a burning hatred for the finer things in life. The corruptions that warped his body, that gnarled his hide into an impenetrable shell, and caused him to grow to a truly monstrous size, had also warped his mind, granting him something that blessed no other troll on the planet, a deep and malevolent cunning that belied his brutish nature and savage appearance. Certainly, the average man of the Empire would soil themselves at the thought of dueling the Troll King or his vicious werekin face to face, but the world was already drowning in a tide of chaotic monstrosities, and had been since before the reign of Sigmar. No, it wasn't his massive size or unbelievable strength alone that haunted his victims and spread his infamy throughout the world. It was the fact that a seemingly dumb brute routinely outsmarted master tacticians, brought battle to the finest Empire and Kislevites generals and bested them, feasted on their armies, and took their broken corpses back to Wintertooth to serve as baubles for his lair. Throgg desires to bring a new ice age to the soft southern realms, descending from the north as a herald of eternal winter. But first, he will need unquestioned dominion of Norsca and the Chaos Wastes, and the unrivaled favor of the Dark Gods. But a hated rival, an effeminate creature of the Dark Prince, stands in his way. Sigvald the Magnificent, Scion of Slaanesh and favorite of the God of Excess, is a beacon of extravagance and debauchery, an unblemished divinity, frozen in time, pristine. But the Geld Prince has ever been the perfect example of the phrase, looks can be deceiving, for under those perfectly chiseled features and flowing blonde hair lies a twisted, corrupt, and vicious soul, hungry for the pain and suffering of those around him. Sigvald represented everything Throgg had come to hate. Where one had hordes of drugged-up sycophants to dote on his every whim and desire, the other sat on a frozen throne in the heart of an eternal blizzard, picking over the scraps of a doomed empire. Where one's elite bodyguard bore mirrored shields so that their leader might bask in his own divine glory, murmuring compliments to himself in the thick of a fierce battle, the other would be overcome by divine fury, smashing aside all in his path. Where one was a paragon of physical beauty and desire, the other was a paragon of mutation, of the corrupting influence of chaos, an ugly and terrifying monster. It was a foregone conclusion the King of Trolls and the Geld Prince would meet in open battle. Sigvald himself had sworn to eradicate the world of his ugly kind for good. And so it was that during Archaon's cataclysmic invasion of the Empire, the Scion of Slaanesh made an attempt on Throgg's life to curry favor with the Dark Gods, and the king would settle this feud once and for all in the only way he knew how. If he had his way, he'd be relieving his bladder all over that shiny gold armor before the day was done, with Sigvald's broken and lifeless body still inside. Norsca is back, baby. We may not be able to play them in the combined campaign until May, but we can go back and play them on Total War Warhammer 1 whenever we want. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I've been missing some good old-fashioned monstrous action, so I hopped on game 1, and my god, am I glad I did. This battle between Throgg and Sigvald was absolutely insane, and I'm not kidding when I say it was probably the closest battle I've ever had on Total War Warhammer, period. And what a fitting rivalry to have it happen with, too. The King of Trolls versus the Geld Prince, Beauty and the Beast, with everyone's favorite good boys leading the charge. A bunch of skin wolves as my core, rolling with 3 Marauders with great weapons in the front line, supported by Soul Crusher, the monstrous frost-eyed mammoth from Norsca. On my left flank, operating far from my main line, are a bunch of skin wolves, the lycanthropes of the far north who shed their mortal bodies and turn into something straight out of nightmares, surrounded by the frostbite ice wolves and anchored by a werekin with ruinous flesh, providing that incredibly useful plus 18 armor buff. Werekin are hands down some of the coolest units we've seen in the trilogy thus far, and what's more, they're actually good too. Regeneration, incredible speed, and some serious punching power in melee. I'm definitely repping Team Jacob in this better love story than Twilight. Warriors of Chaos are marching up now, and of course, we'll get a good look at the scintillating, sexual Scion of Slaanesh, slithering and sauntering towards you sensually like a serpent of Slytherin. It's time to get your dicks out, boys. Hashtag dicks out for Sigvald. And he is, of course, accompanied by his famous Mirror Guard. Yes, we have access to the 30th Anniversary Regiments of Renown, aspiring champions in the front, Forsaken to carve through those squishy Marauders, and a core of Chosen, which will be very tough to deal with. Halberds on the flanks to deal with the monsters, a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and the Summoners of Rage, energy coursing through their bodies, waiting to be unleashed in the form of a Chain Lightning Vortex. Now, the last time these two met in the lore, Sigvald tried to have the King of Trolls assassinated and routinely called him ugly and disgusting to his face. So, when the Geld Prince ruined his hands and face in the battle with Krell, Lord of Undeath, Throgg saw an opportunity to walk up behind the distraught Slaaneshi champion and club his head in, giving his golden armor a golden shower for good measure. So in the lore, Throgg killed Sigvald, but it wasn't really a duel. Sigvald was already really beaten up from his fight with Krell. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. Throgg got his vengeance. Talk smack, get thwacked. Words to live by, boys and girls. And rest assured, Siggy got thwacked. Not much left after the king was done with him. That's why we play these games, right? To create new stories, new battles. So we shall see if history repeats itself in this relatively iconic matchup between the King of Trolls and Sigvald the Magnificent, Scion of Slaanesh. So the Skin Wolves and Ice Wolves of Norsca have surrounded the Chaos army here as Sigvald leads the charge directly into the fray, leading his aspiring champions and Mirror Guard into the thick of the fighting. And you can see that iconic shot between Throgg and Sigvald kind of staring at each other from about 100 meters away. And now the front ranks will collapse and collide into each other as the Forsaken get a great charge into the middle of the Marauders, with Skin Wolves coming up to reinforce, and 1v1 Forsaken will smack around Marauders, cut through them like a hot knife through butter, but backed up by Skin Wolves who are armored, might be a very different engagement, especially when the King of Trolls gets in the thick of the fighting with that gigantic boulder he's carrying around, and he will lay the smackdown on pretty much anything he touches, carving through those Forsaken. Now, Flaming Sword of Ruin has gone down on the left flank of the Chaos Warriors to buff up all the Chosen and Marauders and Forsaken who have made it into melee. And this should help a lot in dealing with the Soul Crusher Mammoth and the rest of the Norscan right flank, as the Ice Wolves engage the Chaos Warhounds with poison and actually smash them very substantially there, which I was pretty surprised about. But Chosen have got into melee now here, and things get pretty difficult for Norsca in general in a straight-up melee grind with the Warriors of Chaos. Now, if you go for a full Mammoth build, that's one thing. They can deal with Chaos pretty easily with all that armor piercing and bonus versus infantry, but it's a different thing entirely when you're playing on 17,000 gold and you've got Chosen and Chosen with great weapons and a bunch of really powerful Chaos units that have a ton of armor. Norsca doesn't necessarily match up as well versus that unless they decide to spam Mammoths, and we haven't done that in this game. It's pretty much all Skin Wolves, which are good, but they're not fantastic against heavily armored stuff, and they can definitely get beat up in a long grind. So another Flaming Sword of Ruin goes down. Soul Crusher trying desperately to push back the tide of Chaos on the right flank. Wintertooth got a really good charge in with a bunch of Skin Wolves from behind, and that's why those Wolves were operating out on the flank, so they could sneak in from behind and get those really good hammer and anvils off. But Chaos, especially when they're goon squatting it up, as you see some vomit overhead from Throgg go flying over the top of all that engagement, especially when Chaos decides to go for a full goon squad with Shaggoths or Dragon Ogres. They haven't gone for a full one here, but they have a nice little one with the Summoners of Rage and that Shaggoth working together. They will slaughter Mammoths, even with something like the Soul Crusher that has in Rage that plus 44% physical resistance or damage resistance in general for a limited amount of time. They can beat up on them real quick, real fast, take them down, and just make them rout from the field, even with that gigantic HP pool. We actually saw a flaming ball go overhead and hit Throgg in the face. Does some decent damage there because it will get additional damage done, because Throgg has regen, and fire damage in general will do more damage to him. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight here on the main line. Soul Crusher's already down to half HP. Dragon Ogres have done a lot of damage to him, and the Chosen and Warriors of Chaos in general will definitely beat up Skin Wolves in a prolonged 1v1 fight, and Soul Crusher is already routing here early on. It's not a good thing for Norsca at all, as Throgg starts beating up on the Mage, who is on a barded warhorse, a regular warhorse rather, Chaos Warsteed, and will run away from that engagement. But losing Soul Crusher this early on, not a good thing for Norsca whatsoever, because it's kind of the linchpin of the entire line, It's kind of what keeps them in the fight and gives them that HP that they really need, that tankiness in the central engagement that they kind of need to stick around. So with that now routing, things start looking very bad for Norsca, and it might be tough to come back from a loss like that if it doesn't come back. And you remember that it's not going to get any regen either. When it loses all that health isn't going anywhere. It's not going to go up like it will for the Skin Wolves. But that is kind of the biggest advantage for Norsca right now, if you think about it, because Skin Wolves have the mobility. They can take the engagements they want when they want. They can certainly scoot around the edges of the battlefield and fight whatever unit that gets isolated and kind of slaughter them, take them off the field. But not only that, the fact that the longer this battle goes, they will be regenerating a lot of their health, which Chaos simply has none of whatsoever. They have no units that will be regenerating health. So when we think about it from that perspective, things definitely start to look a little bit better for Norsca than they initially do in that engagement. But we're talking about a balance where it's already shifted heavily in the Warriors of Chaos' favor. The Shaggoth continuing to chase down Soul Crusher here is kind of waiting in there, trying to do what it can, but the Shaggoth, that mean axe and the energy coursing through it, laying about, and Chain Lightning actually going off from the Summoners of Rage as Chosen push forward. And Soul Crusher doesn't have the mobility to get away from a battle like this. It simply won't be able to pull away. Shaggoth slaughtering it right now, and the Mammoth will basically just have to shatter. It has no other option. With no health left, it needs to just run away. And the Werekin can try to equalize that a bit. The Shaggoth is actually pretty low at this point, but routing now, or about to route, and the Terror should kick in and make it run pretty soon. So Chosen have cleaned up their initial fight here. Werekin and the Skin Wolves thinking about getting a charge in, and they will, and a big one. I love their charge animation. It's so satisfying to see them get on all fours and see them sprint towards whatever fight they're going into. Pretty badass. But yeah, Soul Crusher is routed again, and with only about 1,000 health left, don't imagine it will be able to make much more impact on this battle. But Throgg and his Skin Wolves are still doing what they can here, charging into the flank of Halberds, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the mobility and the importance that has in a battle like this. So the initial fight went very poorly for Norsca. Obviously the infantry died quickly. A lot of the Skin Wolves routed pretty quick as well, because they aren't really suited for those long segments of frontal combat, at least not against Chosen with great weapons. But the ability for them to skirt around the edges and do something like charge into the flank of those halberds that were isolated for a bit there, and then kind of get some of their regeneration back, some of their health back, and then strike again when units are kind of isolated and no longer with the rest of the army, as the Shaggoth goes down to Throgg and the Werekin working in tandem with each other in the middle of a bunch of Chosen. Pretty surprising attack right there, and very well done as the Frost Breath goes off, carves a path for Throgg to escape. Another fireball hitting him in the face from the Fire Mage. But yeah, they're going to look to pull away. But it's going to be all about that health regen and that mobility. There's no longer anything else really to worry about except for the Skin Wolves and Throgg himself. And everything on the Wintertooth army has regeneration. I said that nothing on Chaos has regen. Sigvald, of course, with his Auric armor, will have some of that health regeneration, which could also pay dividends as we get deeper into this battle. But definitely, that initial fight went very well, and a charge from the Werekin, sending Sigvald and a bunch of Chosen flying. And they'll probably look to pull away. I don't think they want to stick around in this fight for too long, because those great weapons will carve through them. Werekin are amazing, but isolated like this, they don't want to be fighting that. So they'll definitely look to pull away and rethink the fight there. Now Throgg chasing down some of the halberds. This is a very good chance for the Wintertooth army to basically just deal with some of these units that are no longer working with the rest of the Chosen and Sigvald. They no longer have a leadership buff from him. They're routing, and if you keep on their ass, they will not come back. And that will be some pretty big swings in Wintertooth favor when you're talking about two units that have bonus versus large and armor piercing. Two traits that are absolutely essential when trying to take down monsters like Throgg or Armored Skin Wolves. So with the Chaos Warriors with halberds off the field, Norsca can seek to re-engage soon and maybe try to take down some of those other isolated units. So we're essentially working with a cavalry build at this point. Skin Wolves kind of operate like Norsca's cavalry. They don't have traditional heavy cav, they don't have traditional shock cav, but they do have kind of a blend. A unit that has a lot of mobility, that has that health regeneration, doesn't quite have the charge power, as something like a Bretonnian cavalry charge, but certainly have a bit more prolonged melee potential. So, what we're going to look to do now, of course, naturally, as Sigvald retreats back to his main line, is get some of our health back. We need it. We absolutely need it. The balance bar is very heavily in the Warriors of Chaos' favor, as we see the yellow kind of shifted more to the left, the red bar taking over quite a lot at the top of that screen there. Go to double fast forward and just see what kind of health regen we can get. Now, we don't want to push it too much. It's a little bit cheesy in this kind of situation to just wait for like 10 minutes to get all your health back. I could do that with my single entities. It won't actually work for my skin wolves because a lot of them have a lot of model losses, which means they're already pretty much at their cap in terms of what kind of health regen they can get back. When you talk about like a skin wolf unit that only has 5 or so models left in the entire unit, they won't be able to go back to their full HP pool, obviously, because a lot of them are dead. So we're not going to get the health back for them, but for the Werkin, for Throgg, we could wait around and basically go all the way up to the top of the health regen cap. Not going to do that here, but it's certainly going to get some of our health back before we get back into the thick of the fighting, because there are some chosen, very angry champions of the Dark Gods ready to express their rage and displeasure with the lycanthropes that have been causing quite a bit of havoc in their formations. Kind of to be expected, a very brutal, quick engagement to kick the battle off. Both factions heavily focused on rushing and getting into melee early, and now getting into melee late, charging forward into the thick of it with a bunch of chosen with great weapons ready to receive the charge, and that is not an easy fight, even for armored skin wolves. Their armor is not going to matter a whole lot when you're talking about the high melee attack and great AP values of a unit like the Chosen. And then you also got to think about it from Sigvald's perspective, right? Because this also plays into the Geld Prince's hands too. Can't forget about that point. Without question, the two most important units on the field are Sigvald and Throgg. And if Throgg is chilling and getting that regen back, so is the Scion of Slaanesh. And Sigvald took way less damage in that initial fight. So while the regen might benefit Throgg a bit more here, we're still talking about letting Sigvald get all the way back to full HP. And that could be a pretty big factor as we move on. I love that animation. It's actually hilarious. Throgg just karate kicking a bunch of Chosen in the face, blood spurting everywhere, and he is doing quite a number on the right flank of the Chosen who have received his charge. But they're holding pretty well, and a lot of those skin wolves who are already really depleted are losing their lives here, and the battle is beginning to slip away. Vengeance is slipping away as the monsters of Wintertooth lose their numbers in the face of Grim Resolve and Demon Forged Armor, but the three most important units for Norsca are still alive, and that's an important point. Still able to gain health. The two Werkin, both with Ruinous Flesh, bestowing that plus 18 armor buff, although that will not stack together, and Throgg himself. Now out of Copious Vomit, but still able to refresh his fatigue and buff the melee attack of his Werkin partners. They're still doing some work here. There are actually a few skin wolves left as well. Surprising how long they've lasted. That regeneration has been just a gigantic point in this battle. If they didn't have it, they would have died and routed a long time ago. But the important thing in a situation like this is to cycle in and out of combat. Throgg has the mobility. First off, he can bestow Frostbite, so minus 52% speed to any unit that he hits in melee. But then he also has speed himself to pull out. He has the mass to be able to push through Chosen, run away, get a little bit of health back, and then go back in and get some of that more charge bonus going on before he attacks again, and then just continue cycling. It's basically like using cavalry, right? Like, you don't want to leave cav in melee for too long. You charge in, pull out, cycle charge again, and see what kind of damage you can do. Because every time you get that charge bonus off, you're getting a big buff to your melee attack and damage output in general. So Throgg and his Werkin are beasting it up right now, no question about it. The center of a bunch of very angry Chosen. Sigvald is still doing okay right now, about half HP, and he is getting tossed around. And actually, in some ways, that's a very good thing for the Geld Prince, for the Scion of Slaanesh, because he really doesn't want to be taking the full brunt of those attacks. And when he does get knocked down, that does mean he's not taking damage. Now, when you talk about that, though, it also means you can get isolated from the rest of your army, and he has been here. He got punched in the face by Throgg and then basically tackled to the ground and sent flying by one of the Werkin charges, and now he's no longer in the middle of the Chosen, and that means he can take a lot more damage. And when Throgg comes over here, he can finally begin laying about on some vengeance right now and looking to drop that boulder on top of Sigvald's head. Maybe move towards those golden shower shenanigans that Throgg is oh so fond of. And you know, to be honest, Sigvald is probably too. Definitely into that sort of thing. Just maybe not from a big nasty troll. One of the Werekin who had routed off has come back, still yearning for blood, still howling for the thrill of life and death combat, sprinting with pure barbaric rage, just a straight up animal back into the thick of the fighting. And it is getting so close now, but Chaos, in terms of the balance bar, actually has a pretty sizable advantage. Throgg sitting around 800 health left or so he can die very easily. About 2 strikes from Sigvald would be enough to finish him off, or get him close enough to rout anyway, as he's in the middle of a bunch of Chosen, all with armor piercing and great melee attack values. And actually, the Mirror Guard of Slaanesh rallying to the Lord's side right now, immune to Psych, so not affected by the fear or terror the monsters of Wintertooth cause. And the King of Trolls routes. He actually routes here, and look at the balance bar. Werekin routing as well. 1 Werekin is all that is left on the field right now. Big swing in the Warriors of Chaos' favor. Can the Werekin hold on long enough for Throgg and the other Werekin to come back, get a little bit of their health back left, and actually cycle back into combat? Their leadership is at 0 right now, which means they haven't returned just yet, but they might do so. And he's still alive, still causing fear in the middle of that fighting, which is crazy. I don't think he's just routed, or maybe he's getting pulled out of combat, get a little bit of health back, and Throgg has rallied. Oh, he's wavering though. Everything is wavering on the field right now, and this battle is getting so crazily close. Everything on the field is so close to death. The Chosen are so worse for the wear right now, and 1 or 2 attacks could be enough to send them shattering, but the same goes for the Werekin, same goes for Throgg. If Sigvald lands 1 good strike, Throgg might go down, but he is looking to charge into the back of the rest of these Chosen. Werekin getting back into it. Everything below like 200 health at this point. Throgg, 1 or 2 hits from death. Chosen, 1 or 2 hits from routing. And we have got a barn burner here, folks. Things are getting crazy. I mean, just look at the health bars of what's actually left on the field. I've never seen that. In my history of playing Total War Warhammer, I have never seen 5 or so units that all have so little health, you can't even see green or red. It's literally just a black bar. They're missing so much health for everything. Throgg is now down to about 200 health left. Sigvald goes down here. The Lord is dead. Throgg is wavering. The Werekin's wavering. The Chosen are wavering. Everything is wavering. What's actually going to lose here? Chosen getting into melee. Throgg stabilizes and takes 1 last swing in and wins the day. Norsca takes it after the balance bar had shifted 3/4 in the way of the Warriors of Chaos' favor. They take it on the backs of wavering on their Lord and the Werekin, each below 200 health, and I've never seen an ending to a Total War Warhammer battle that was that close. Insane, absolutely insane. I was freaking out when I played it live, still freaking out watching it back, because you just don't see battles like that. It's absolutely crazy. So as you can imagine, incredibly pleased to go back to play Total War Warhammer 1 and get some Norsca action in. I know you guys have been clamoring for it. I wanted to bring it to you, and to get a battle of that caliber to be able to show you, very happy. So, hope you guys enjoyed the battle. I'll see you next time. Any Pride, signing out for now.